Hi, honey, how are you? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, I'm Teknikolour. Today, I am sharing a build in Ciudad Enamora, the world that shipped with the Love Struck expansion pack. I'd been looking for photos of buildings to draw inspiration from, and I'd seen this concept image, and knew I wanted to do something similar with a rounded wall. I know, I wanted to work with rounded walls. Go figure. Plus, I had a feeling it would fit in really well in Ciudad Enamora, the Love Struck world, so I spent some time scoping out lots that I thought would work. Now, I have to be level with y'all, but I am not the biggest fan of some of these lots, simply because of the surrounding fencing bordering some of the lots. I actually don't have a ton of experience building in this particular world either, and I think that's mostly because I tend to avoid building here because of how some of the lots have this fencing around them. Anyway, all of this to say that I definitely decided to build on a lot that has fencing bordering it. In this particular instance, though, I feel like it actually adds to the overall look of the lot. I had a feeling that I'd add more fencing to the build itself, and I don't mind the different fencing types on one lot either. This is the Avenida de la Eternidad lot, which is located in the Plaza Mariposa neighborhood. I think the overall look and feel of this neighborhood, and obviously the Love Struck Pack's build mode offerings, help to make this build look absolutely fabulous. I feel like I say this about every single one of my builds, or well, maybe not every build, but I think this one came out really nicely. Though I did struggle for a bit between the general shape of the building and how to do the first and second floors, and then obviously how to roof them. I'm very pleased with the finished result. That's also technically 2 rounded rooms, though the top room is open to below, so it's not as difficult. I think because I didn't do too much decoration with this round room in general, though, I only end up adding windows and a dining table. It worked out to our benefit, so we didn't run into too many round wall issues. I am also just going to say it right now. This build is technically a limited pack build, though it uses quite a few expansion packs. Get to Work, Get Famous, Life and Death, Royalty and Legacy, and of course, Love Struck. But other than that, I only used a few kits, and I'm proud to say that I stuck with just a few kits because I knew we had a bunch of expansions already. The kits I ended up using were Desert Luxe, Greenhouse Haven, Modern Retreat, and Garden to Table. I will say that you could probably get away with substituting missing items if you don't have the kits. And Get Famous only uses the brick wallpaper, the television, and some art. If you don't have Get to Work, don't fret, because I literally only used it for its super low fencing. I'll go over that a bit more when I start to use it in this speed build, but you really don't need it if you don't have it. At this point in the build, I'm starting to finally decide exactly how I'd like the second story to look. I was a bit frustrated during this part of the build because I felt like this was becoming a much larger build than I had intended. A good tip when it comes to building in The Sims is that bigger isn't always better. Sometimes I'll even make a room smaller or take away space from a build just to make things a bit more concise. On the other hand, though, sometimes it can be really nice to go a bit bigger and add on more space. I think an issue I was running into with this second floor, however, was the fact that based on the position of my staircase, it felt like I had space for a large primary bedroom, but then I didn't want to extend the second floor over as much as the first floor towards the back of the house. I really don't know what I was thinking though, because once I really started to look at the shape and size of the rooms on the first floor, it made a lot of sense to have one bedroom downstairs and keep the second floor just for the primary suite. Roofing all of this was an entirely different issue. Based on the concept art, I wanted to keep the roofing simple and consistent to that, but the backside was different and unknown. I was worried about windows because it seemed like no matter how I roofed the back of the house, I was getting rid of usable window space, at least for the second floor. You'll see later on, though, that I came up with a solution that I think works so well to allow in light at the back of the house while not sacrificing, like, curb appeal. While I'm figuring out roofing and exterior paint and all that, I thought I might take some time to let you know about some things going on in the Sims community right now. I don't know if this is something that has been on the radar of a lot of gamers or even just Simmers in general, but you may have seen more about this in the news recently, so it's worth talking about. Electronic Arts, or EA, is the publisher of The Sims, and last year they announced that they would be going private in a $55 million sale this year. Here's the thing. This sale is something that's called a leveraged buyout, and will likely be explained by EA as something good. It'll basically be helping EA with their debt, with the buyers in this sale coming to their rescue and helping to keep the games we love afloat. That's not really the truth, though. And there's repercussions that will be felt throughout the entire gaming industry if this sale goes through. Especially because this could end up being the largest leveraged buyout in history. If you're a returning viewer, you know that I've been very vocal about my position on this whole EA deal. But if you're new here, I really hope that you'll hear me out. I think it's easy to put the sale into perspective in terms of The Sims first. Currently, we have a lot of downloadable content for The Sims 4. Expansion packs, game packs, stuff packs, and kits. And as I know you are well aware, that all becomes quite costly once you add it all up together. Being a Simmer can be expensive. I know that a lot of people had been holding out hope for a The Sims 5, and while it seemed like that elusive Project Renee might just be that, it turned out that it's actually more of an additional game within the Sims franchise and not a successor to The Sims 4. I don't think that The Sims 4 is going anywhere, which means that you can likely expect to see what we've been seeing. New pack releases, free base game updates, that sort of thing. This sale could change all of that, and not in a way that you might expect. The whole point of leveraged buyout is to have investors, or the buyers, assist the bought out company with its debt. To make their investment worth it, they need to pull back on things we want and expect, like new and innovative packs, free content, and likely even the people working on their games. Instead, they're going to be serving us shiny new monetization schemes, hoping we won't notice that we're paying more for less, in addition to cutting expenses in ways that will hurt the game and us as gamers. You know the marketplace that came to the game, where you can exchange real money for a virtual currency called Moolah and turn that in for maker packs? You're essentially able to get custom content, though approved and sold by The Sims since it's in-game and also available to console players, though it is paid DLC. Well, this is exactly the kind of thing you can expect to see going forward if this sale goes through. One could argue that this one instance, the marketplace, is actually helping us. CC creators and console players benefit, because the makers behind these packs are getting paid, and those on console now get access to basically approved custom content, which they couldn't add to their game before. Don't be fooled. Originally, this marketplace wasn't just maker packs, but they also removed all kits from other storefronts like Epic Games and Steam and put them in-game, locked behind this Moolah currency. They did reverse that decision after complaints, but who knows what else could be in store for us should this buyout pass. The makers themselves likely aren't even getting paid as much as they are worth either, because it's possible they're only receiving a small cut of the proceeds, or maybe even just a flat fee. And if we lose the real-life artists and people working on The Sims 4, they'll be relying on those custom content creators to start churning out more maker packs, or worse, they'll start serving us AI slop. Now, imagine all of that, but instead of it just happening within The Sims, It's on a much larger scale because EA publishes a lot of games. Plus, this buyout could set a precedent and end up harming more game developers and gamers, including the ones who don't even play The Sims or any other EA titles. The buyers in this sale are Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF, Affinity Partners, and Silver Lake. If you do some research into them, these buyers do not seem to share the same values that The Sims does, meaning us as the players and the Sims team themselves. If you've enjoyed seeing The Sims 4 bring so much incredible representation to the game in recent years, please know that prioritizing representation will not be at the top of these buyers' lists. They could remove, limit, or even stop these inclusionary practices that we've become accustomed to across packs and free content updates. I'm going to share a link in the description of this video to a petition by Players Alliance on Action Network that aims to block this deal. If you feel so inclined to sign it, please do. But I urge you to do your own research and see what you learn about this buyout and how it could impact you. Don't just take my word for it. Moreover, reach out to your local representatives and let them know your thoughts. While this whole EA deal was announced last year, it's not set to pass until this summer, which is rapidly drawing nearer. There is some good news, though. Members of the US Congress already had called upon the Federal Trade Commission to do a thorough review of the deal before allowing it to pass. Plus, those responsible for the petition that I just mentioned have already gone to Electronic Arts headquarters and delivered some of the now over 70,000 signatures they've received so far. But now I'm going to thank you for letting me rant about this because I truly do think it's important, and step off my soapbox and get back to the video. Moving on to the kitchen here, I feel like I need to branch out when it comes to the kitchen cabinets I tend to build with. I think I always gravitate towards the same few cabinet styles, at least more recently, so I forced myself into picking something I don't usually. I would absolutely hate these cabinets in real life, but I will admit I think the style works here. Originally, I'd picked out one of the other base game cabinets, but I couldn't find a matching upper cabinet swatch, so that's why we went with these. It's sort of funny though, because we're using these ultra luxe looking appliances from the Life and Death pack. Originally, I had changed them to the white swatch to make them seem a bit less luxe, but then switched back to the all black swatch. I also had my heart set on a round table for this rounded wall spot. I thought it would just be perfect. Then I realized none of the packs I'd selected had a round table that was large enough and had the look that I wanted. This one is base game, and the wood color was just ever so slightly off from what I'd wanted, but I don't think it's that noticeable. Once I put that window over the sink, you had to know what was up. I had officially got distracted, as I always do, and now was going to spend some time picking out windows and making some adjustments around the build itself. Something that I found quite comical was the fact that even though I used these full height windows from the Greenhouse Haven kit a fair amount, for some reason I'd forgotten that they existed. I cut the footage out for time, but I was using 3 different types of windows here previously, and I almost even added in another expansion before I remembered that these were perfect for what I was wanting. The only thing I didn't like about them was that there's that tiny gap between the floors, which I did not want. If I wasn't using round walls, or maybe a smaller round wall, I probably could have just used that new base game glass wallpaper, but it covered the entire round wall here, and I wanted some of that brick poking through. So to hide that unsightly gap, which, let's be real, was it bothering anybody but me? I doubt it. I chose an exterior trim that I thought would work with everything else I'd been using. This matches the trim around the front door and the columns, so it helps tie those in instead of just using black to match these actual windows. Speaking of windows, I was thrown a bit for a loop when it came to the very front of the building. By using the two-story column and having the kitchen window further off to the side, it kind of makes the visual balance weird. Took me a little while to come up with a solution I'd liked, which ended up being two smaller windows spaced out. On the right side of that room, I added a much larger window between two smaller ones. This, I think, helps to bring in much needed light to this space, since the rounded wall windows are blocked from the room, while also making the front of the house look less jumbled. Or at least I think it does. You might be looking at this screaming at your screen telling me to go back to a different placement. I almost had a larger window above the door and a small window on the left above the kitchen window because I thought I could add a little reading nook or a bathroom or something before I realized I wanted to put that primary bathroom behind the stair railing. As for the stairs, I don't really know what I did to have them disappear. Maybe I changed wall height a bunch of times or something. I honestly don't remember, but I added them back in here. But then I ran into an issue because I had wanted them to flare out on the side using the new feature for stairs. I still wanted the railing only on the right and for the foot of the stairs to swing out as well, though I didn't want to move that wall in or anything. So we had a bit of a gap until I added in a platform and another set of stairs with no railing. I did actually playtest this because I wasn't entirely sure how this would work with two staircases here. Like, would your sim get confused if they went up the smaller platform staircase? Or if they went up that one first, would they continue up the other half of the right staircase? They seem to just naturally go up the stairs on the right, at least in my testing, so it should work. Back on the right side of the build, I kind of wanted to include a balcony, or at least a covered pathway, so we'd have another door on this side leading to the backyard. This is literally the only reason why I introduced the Desert Luxe kit, because that door is perfect for this space. This door is perfect in a lot of builds, but the only thing that drives me absolutely nuts with it is the fact that it's always open, even in gameplay, so it can never be shut. I really wish we had an option, at least, where it could be closed by default and would open as expected when a sim goes through it. This is also where I spent some time mapping out exactly how I wanted the yard to look like. I wanted that pathway on the right side of the building to lead out into the backyard with a little gate to one of these openings on the side of the lot. Then I figured I could add another gate on the left side of the house to act as a way in between the front and backyards. Since the gate itself is small and I wanted there to be an even amount of space on either side of the gate for this mini fence between the two yards, I decided to build out a little chimney bump out over here. I should mention that everything we've seen in the speed build up until this point, I had done alone. But from this point, for a chunk of the rest of the video, I was actually working on this build on my Twitch stream. If you didn't know, I stream typically 4 days a week and play a variety of games, with a fair amount of that being The Sims 4. Wednesday nights was my plan to alternate between Sims building and playing Palia, but recently the new expansion in Palia dropped and I've been very excited about that, so that's temporarily taken over Wednesday night streams. But every Thursday morning, I play with my Legacy family, which has been a lot of fun since it's my second Legacy challenge that I've ever done. I actually wrote this one too, the Around the World's Legacy, which is still a bit of a work in progress as a way to help introduce myself to the gameplay features tied to each pack. Because I consider myself primarily a builder, I'd become used to the packs I had from a building standpoint, but when it came to gameplay, I'd be lost. Like, for instance, when my currently Legacy heir's son ages up into a young adult, he'll officially become the heir and be the primary sim we play as. And since each generation is usually focused around a new world and the pack that world came with, most, if not all, of the gameplay will be tied to that pack. When we switch to this sim, we'll be moving out of Tartosa and away from my wedding stories and moving into Strangerville. I'm super looking forward to this because, believe it or not, I know nothing about the Strangerville story and I don't really know what I'm expecting. Plus, this sim is also going to be a criminal. So there's that whole aspect that I've never explored in The Sims, which should make things interesting. You may have also noticed the watermark in the corner of this video too. Despite what I was saying about the EA deal earlier, I am a Sims partner, so occasionally I am able to check out new packs in early access and host giveaways that are sponsored by The Sims. I was absolutely floored when I was accepted as a Sims partner, and I absolutely love this game. So please take this as confirmation about how concerned I am about the deal. Given everything I've said about it, you may not want to be purchasing Sims packs or anything right now, but I should mention that as a Sims partner, I do have a creator code you can use. Technically, it can be used when you're purchasing pretty much any EA title on the EA app, and I'll receive a small commission from EA, which, as a small creator, is a much bigger help than you'd realize, trust me. But if you use my code, which I should actually say it because I don't think I have, when you use code Teknikolour when purchasing specifically packs for The Sims 4 on the EA app, you'll receive a discount. Again, after hearing what I said about the EA deal, you may not want to use it, but I figured I should mention it anyway. I do hope you'll do your own investigating into the deal and decide how you feel about it, because it really does impact us all as gamers. A few people have also asked me what to do if they don't want to use the code, but still want to show some support my way. And a really helpful and free thing you can do is watch and interact with my YouTube videos. Even more, following me over on Twitch, I'll drop my link in the description, and watching or even just pulling up my stream up in another tab whenever you can is actually really helpful towards me reaching my goals, YouTube and Twitch partner, than a commission from EA would be. Though obviously any financial support is always appreciated, since I am doing this full time while still searching for a job as a graphic designer. It's hard out here for us creatives, y'all. What was I even talking about before this? Oh, I started this section of the build while streaming, so it was fun to get live input from people while working on this. I think for the most part, we tackled this sort of main space with the kitchen, dining, and foyer rooms, as well as the living room past those 3 arches, which you'll see a bit later. Working on the entryway and that side door to the backyard was kind of interesting because you don't normally have an entryway lead to another entry point. I think that since the side door is so large and it looks out onto a small path and then a fence, it helps your mind sort of acknowledge that it might lead back outside, but feels more like a small patio or something because of the fence. The entry itself was kind of fun to work with too, because I had given myself a bit of a larger space to work with. And then because there's that extra space on the side, I ended up focusing on that instead. Like, this room is 3 spaces by 4 or something, and I really said we needed to bring in that empty space on the right. Then you'll see we don't even make use of the main area. I actually do like that though, because it feels very much like a walkway and an entrance that sort of sweeps you in. I think entryways can be really important, and I don't think that we give them as much thought as they probably should need. Plus, they don't really need much. Like here, I kind of wanted to make a sort of hall tree or something in that small spot, and we end up having a kind of small walk-in closet space with a big mirror. Then the rest of it is just open to draw you into the house, where the next space sets you up for the style and kind of voice of the home. This spot almost feels like a small breath, and the next space is so open, especially with the staircase right there, so it could be overwhelming. It's also kind of funny because the very first room after this is technically a half bath. And I decided to make it very bold and to make a statement with it. Then, with the stairs sort of curling over towards us, it begins to invite you into the rest of the room. I loved how almost immediately we started to decorate that small little nook too. I felt like that big palm tree fit perfectly, and then I liked the idea of having a small table or something immediately to the left of the half-bath door. Shifting it over, having a little bar cart and a wall mirror, all in black, like the stair railing, sort of grounds the space. Here's around where I decided to bring in the garden to table kit, which can be a really fun addition to a build. It's almost like having a plant kit, like blooming rooms or something like that. That's more grounded in gardening and kind of bridges between indoor and outdoor through greenery and vegetables. With that leaning ladder shelf, I absolutely adore, by the way, it can become a bit more busy than our Lux Nook. And because this is one of the first spaces you see when you come into the home, you're sort of introduced to the inhabitants through it. I don't know if my chat had realized this when we got to this part of the build, but I was kind of intimidated by this big space I had given us for the living room. I was obviously very inspired by the big living room in the last build I shared here on YouTube. That's really interesting because I'm sharing homes in very different styles with big living rooms, one after the other. You wouldn't know this, but I think I had worked on like 8 different builds in real life, and all in between these two. Legitimately, I was getting a bit worried because I took a week off here on YouTube because even though I had been ahead of the game in terms of builds, I got swept up in live streams and life that I gave myself almost no time to get another build done. Then, whenever I was working on a build, I just couldn't finish anything. I could certainly start a lot of builds, but I'd hit some sort of roadblock and put the brakes on it and would move on to something else every time. This was the first build that I felt like I had a real vision in place for the exterior and interior. And it's very different from my usual style, so I think that had a lot to do with it. Anyway, I really liked that last build's big living room and wanted to do something similar here. But then I went and put the fireplace in that bump out we had made for the chimney. So it made sense to put there, but I had planned on having a fireplace on one side and a television on the other. Since I'd committed to those cute, but probably a little quirky 3 archways into this room, it didn't give us much room for a TV on that wall. I thought it would be cool to embrace the size of the room and make the furniture a bit more spaced out. And I just hoped it would fall into place from there. I mentioned earlier about a very low profile fence from Get to Work that I adore and is the sole item we're using from that pack. Sorry again. Well, here I can kind of show it off. I previously had done this in my current Legacy Sims kitchen and had mentioned it there, but I was very excited that there were some in my chat who didn't know about this trick. So this fencing works super well with the Love Struck pack because you can have the tile flooring with the medallions and the tile flooring without them. And by surrounding a selection of the medallion tiles with this low profile fencing, you can almost emulate an area rug. In this instance, I ended up using a different flooring type for the rug, but it's the same idea. I feel like some didn't recognize it from my other build because in that one, I sort of use it as a rug, but it's under the kitchen table, so it sort of gets covered up. It's also not the main visual statement piece in that kitchen either. With this living room, I decided to have the furniture spaced out a bit more and use the new modular couch from the Royalty and Legacy pack to do so. I really like the bold print as the starter swatch, but I loved how the fake rug we made was so bold and I didn't want it to clash. So we went with a solid color fabric. But then I felt like it just looked plain and boring. And my chat recommended that I use throw pillows to help break it up. Here's the thing. I love those throw pillows we have in the game, across packs, and even in the base game. Also from events, I believe. Do I use them? Almost never. I don't know why, but I never remember to. So I was happy for the reminder that they existed and the challenge in using them here. You might wonder how I was able to elevate and rotate them and arrange them so quickly, but I use a twisted Mexi mod called the Tool mod, which is a lifesaver for building. Highly recommend. I also did something a bit more funky and used that Life and Death coffee table and just kept duplicating it and rotating it until it made more of a sun kind of shape. So Now this room has the wall with the entry, which wasn't big enough for a TV, opposite the fireplace wall. So we really only had the front and back sides of the house to work with for a television. I had arranged the furniture in a different way, so I was really disappointed in myself here and worried about having to redo all the work with the pillows. Luckily, because we'd made this fake rug into a room, all I had to do was simply rotate the room, and it kept everything how I wanted, but in a different orientation. Then we just added a television to the front wall, with 2 windows flanking it. And on the back, we used a similar setup with the smaller windows, and a large window to give some sense of symmetry. Then all there was left to do was add paint and some decor throughout the room to give it more of a voice and match the style of the rest of the home. This is also around the point where I ended my stream. And then I was actually kind of sad because I loved working with chat for this part of the build, but I didn't want to wait another week to finish this. So I'd have to work on the rest off stream. I decided earlier that the owners of the house would be a lesbian couple, but I hadn't thought about how I wanted to decorate the second bedroom. It could really be anything. A guest room, a kid's room. It doesn't even need to stay a bedroom. It could become an office or something. As soon as I got to this room, though, I knew I wanted to decorate it with twin sisters in mind. Once I was happy with the furniture choices and the general layout, it just came down to giving each sister their own sort of space and personality. For some reason, I gravitated towards this kind of preppy or Lolita kind of style for the girl on the left side of the room. I think if I'm being honest, a friend of mine from college was on my mind at the time, and her style must have come through while I was decorating. I know she follows me, so if you happen to see this, I miss you. I hope you're doing well. The other sister, however, I wanted to give a different kind of style to, and I kind of fell for that girly girl and tomboy trope. But in fairness, I think it's kind of hard to find enough decoration within the game to do more than that. For the main bathroom, which is literally right around the corner from the half bath, I had originally intended to put a tub shower combo, but I swear they refused to give us nice ones in the base game. And none of the packs we're using here had something, so I went with this shower from Life and Death. Thankfully, I feel like it pairs well with the sink from Royalty and Legacy, so I was very pleased. This bathroom is also less bold than our half bath, which I think is fine. Moving upstairs, we're starting to work on the primary bedroom. I really like the bed and flower sort of ceiling light from Lovestruck, and I wanted them both in here. However, this room ended up feeling a lot larger than I had realized. I think originally I was going to split this room up between the bedroom and a bathroom, but then I had that extra room behind the stair railing, which I'm only realizing now that I could have probably just turned that into an office or even a balcony. Oh well. The room itself, since it's a bit bigger, gave us space to breathe and play around with. Automatically, I expected that the bed would be up against the wall at the front of the house, but as I was thinking about it, I decided to move it over to the side instead. This helps give us a more defined split to the space, so we can actually do more on the other side of the room. Plus, this gives us a better sense of space on either side of the bed, especially with the door to the bathroom here on this half of the room. On the other half, I added almost a tiny living room. So there's a small sofa and an armchair facing the fireplace and television. We obviously needed the homeowner's bedroom to be as bold as the rest of the house. So I went with that floral wallpaper for the 2 smaller walls, but took some time to make a decision on what to do with the longer walls. In the end, I went with basically the same wallpaper, but solid without the florals, so it blends in seamlessly. In the bathroom, I wanted this to kind of scream luxury, and for it to be a bit of a serene kind of escape. So the lighter tile floor and walls helps to bring a sense of calm to the room, while the red furnishings help to bring that punch of style and color to the room. I also tried something new in here by adding that sort of bathroom cabinet clipped into the cabinet between the sinks. Again, using the tool mod to put it in the right place and at the right height. Back to the stair landing, I thought it made sense to add a little chess table here. Originally, I was going to add a desk, but I wasn't entirely sure if the Sims would be able to pass to get into the bedroom, and it felt tight, so I switched to this. Still roomy, but gives this spot more of a function. Then downstairs, you may notice that sort of animal design coffee table that's made its way around the entire house, and now back here in the main space. Tucked in the corner, it acts as a side table for a bookshelf and lamp. In the backyard, I added a small pool, some lounge chairs, and then set up a kind of outdoor kitchen dining area off to the side. I know that the colors and textures of the items from this garden to table kit don't match exactly, but I do think they complement everything else really nicely. It felt a little too empty over on this side, however, so I also brought out the bar from the Desert Luxe kit. In the front yard, I didn't love that there was this blank space between the two small windows that flank the television inside the living room. I remembered that we have this cool fountain from Royalty and Legacy, so I tried to figure out if I could make use of that here, and it fit perfectly. Plus, it gave me an idea for having another sort of outdoor entertaining space here in the front. Using the same get-to-work fencing trick, I made an actual bordered area for us, and then continued the tile around in a way that felt like it blended the pathway and the entertaining space nicely. Still, I thought that there was something missing a bit off to the side, so I made a small fountain and put some of the water emitters in it. I think it looks really good and sort of acts as a kind of refreshing space, so both fountains kind of help to cool down the area. When it came to landscaping, we still had plenty of room to add flowers and bushes and things. However, I did want to cover up that flooring glitch from using the round room. Here is where I really struggled, but don't worry, I cut out a fair amount of that from this footage because it was seriously embarrassing how long it took to come up with a solution. I personally really love hydrangeas, and I tend to use them a lot in my builds, but they did give us some great hydrangea options from Royalty and Legacy, and I feel like that pack has a good synergy with Lovestruck. So I kind of went wild here with the hydrangea, but also added some more typical Ciudad Enamora landscaping. I was a bit worried because I wasn't sure how to make the landscaping feel like it fit in here and wasn't placed on top of tile, but also didn't look weirdly separate from the tiled area either. Using this low-laying creeping ivy really helped, but I had to size it down a fair amount so it wouldn't cover too much of the path or clip inside to the house. What do you think? Does it fit here, or did I miss the mark? I'm so unsure of my landscaping, I swear. Is there like a class I can take? I also thought it might be fun to use those peacock roof statues from the Royalty and Legacy pack. They don't match exactly, but by using them on the posts of the fence at the entrance to the lot, I think helped elevate the build a ton. Plus, using the similar statues with the little jar decoration thing sized down on the other posts of the fence tied it all together. Other than adding in some extra outdoor lighting and working on terrain paint though, that's pretty much the entire speed build. So let me pop open the game and I'll give you a quick tour. As you can see, we're in the game now, and this is how it all looks without all the camera movement. I really, really like this one. Just quickly showing an aerial view, you see that you can come in here and there's the whole entertaining space in the front. And then you do have that gate to get you into the backyard, but we're going to come in through the front door. And you have this entryway here. And again, it kind of just brings you into the main space. And then you have this sort of small hallway that brings you to either the teen's bedroom or you have the main bathroom for the house. And then there's this door over here, which also leads you back out into the backyard. Coming in and turning left, though, you have the half bath over here, which is extremely bold, and I really love the way it turned out. And then you have the kitchen and dining area over here. And don't worry, I did fix whatever happened with the flooring just there. Going through these three archways brings you into this huge living room. And I think with the fireplace lit and the TV on, it's going to be a very nice family space. Heading upstairs, as you can see, this whole place is open to below, but then you've got this little stair landing, and then that brings you to the primary bedroom. And I really like the way this looks, especially with these big wardrobes and then this huge mirror over here. And then you just have this bathroom just tucked into the corner, and there is this window to let in light and just give more of like a serene idea to this space. If you enjoyed this video, please drop me a like. Want to see more of my builds and other cozy gaming videos? Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss future uploads. To add this build to your game, find it on the gallery using my EA ID, Teknikolour. If you want even more Sims content, consider dropping me a follow over on Twitch. I livestream my pack-based Legacy Challenge every Thursday, but play other cozy games throughout the week. Planning on picking up Lovestruck or any other packs? Please use my creator code, Teknikolour, when checking out on the EA app. It's free for you and supports the channel. Plus, my code can now be used on so many other EA titles, not just The Sims. Though the discount only applies for Sims 4 packs. But thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye!